Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. We always welcome your questions and comments. Hit us up at email at dj@artistfirst.com. And now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
The mind is the king of the senses, and the breath is the king of the mind. And if you have bad breath, you're crazy. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And tonight's topic is that quote from a really wonderful philosopher. His name is B.K.S. Iyengar. And I believe he's probably Hindu, but we don't know that for sure. But we came upon this quote. You know, we have sort of like eclectic. We'll put it this way: our website lists and our YouTube lists would be very interesting to the FBI. No, I mean to many people, because we watch all kinds of things, and we stumbled. I think you stumbled across this quote, and it's kind of struck us as being sort of profound, because breath, I mean, the life force is often expressed as breath. I mean, when God, when in Genesis God creates man, he infuses clay in the shape of a being with his breath, with his life force. And throughout all human existence, you know, the breath has been synonymous with those who are alive. You when you die, you take your last breath. When you're born, you take your first breath. And in Oriental cultures, there's the chi, the concept of chi, which is again the life force, which is both. It's given as both blood and breath. And I'm not sure which one is more common or which one is more correct. The energy flows, though, are associated with both.
Well, chi force is life energy.
When you build up your chi, oftentimes they use breath exercises to build up a chi ball.
Right. But that goes along with what we are presenting at this point. The mind is the king of the senses, and the breath is the king of the mind. It's understanding that breath overrides.
I think I like stills.
Right. It does still the mind. But when you have had an experience like this, because you really need to experience what that means, when your breath stills the mind, that moment or that experience is rather unique, because most people's minds are constantly going. And if you say it this way, people say, oh, yes. But the experience isn't there to understand what that means. Stilling the mind means you're not at the mercy of your thoughts. Anything that's coming by, your consciousness is not taken away with it like a feather on a breeze. You are present and grounded and standing in consciousness, in awareness, like an oak tree. Just very deep, very still. The breath is the mechanism that is usually used to begin that process, to still the mind. And when that happens, if you think about it, what is actually happening when you are using the breath to still the mind, to stop that process? Because if you think about it, you're sitting there going, it's impossible. And it is, as long as you keep thinking about it.
Thinking about it, yes.
And that's where the problem lay. Continuing to think about how to still your mind means that you're still thinking about the mind.
Right. The mind is still involved. I like his quote here, the beginning of this quote, where he says the mind is the king of the senses. But I would even turn that around. I'd say that most people's minds are triggered. All these thoughts are triggered by the senses, and it's this constant sort of judgment and evaluation of, oh, I like this, I don't like that, I do this, I do that, I saw that, it's like basically like squirrel, and you because your mind is, I'll say everyone's mind. So we're very prevalent to letting the mind run in tiny circles and be constantly involved with the past and the future and what's going to happen and how it's going to do and what how that worked out and what this one said and what that one's going to say, and all triggers. All these the word these days is triggers, right?
But from this particular person, it's understanding that the mind exercises that are used are so that the senses do not override you.
Exactly.
Okay, so the first step is using the mind to quell the senses, or not allow the senses to be the very first thing that your consciousness is perceiving or being overrun by, not to be dominated by sense or sensory perceptions. And that is the exercise, or rather the exercises that are done in order, the mind exercises that allow you to develop a way to handle all the wave after wave of perception that can be hitting you. And the easiest way is to concentrate solely on the breath and only on the breath and the mechanism of the breath, because it allows that focus. The mind basically takes command at that point to help put off the input, sensory input that you're getting into perspective, because you're too close to the reception of the data coming in. You need to have a distance so that you can look at things objectively. And usually it is the breath and the concentration of the breath that allows you to pull away from being mired in everything that is coming in at you.
I think the exercise that I've heard is that you concentrate upon the breath, and many meditations will start out with just focus on just the simplest thing, your breathing. One good reason I've heard said is that basically breathing is something you do almost unconsciously, but yet, unlike your heartbeat, you have a lot more easy or conscious control over your breath. Your heartbeat is also unconscious. Yet, I think more advanced practitioners of this discipline can actually control their heartbeats and other autonomic functions. But for the beginner, it's very easy to both concentrate on your breath and to control your breath. And so they will start saying, first, just be aware that you're breathing. Be aware of the in-breath. Be aware of the sensation of drawing breath in, hold, and then release. And then, they say, well, now do it at, slow it down a little bit. Take a deep breath. Hold it for a count, whatever it may be. Release it slowly. Hold again the emptiness, and then you go back and forth. And it gives, I believe, it gives the beginner, the mind, something to occupy it. The thing about the mind is if it's concentrating on something, it ignores all other things. And that's the power that we're harnessing here, is that in concentrating on this one thing and using the mind to control something extremely simple, it frees the mind. It puts it into a cycle. It puts it into connection with the body. It puts it into a cycle that ignores all the other things which are external. And then I think in most meditations, once you achieve sort of a balance there, a stasis, a sort of a balance there, then suddenly thoughts again try to intrude. They come into your mind, and they usually counsel you to remain focused on your breath and just let that thing, it'll come in, oh, I got to pay that bill next week. It'll kind of wander around up there being ignored, and then it'll kind of drop away.
Right. That is basically the beginnings of how to hold center and allow a broader perspective for your consciousness, expanding your consciousness. But yes, random thoughts or emotions are allowed to pass through. You don't need to engage in them. You don't need to reach out mental fingers and grab the thought and start examining the thought. You basically allow your consciousness not to engage.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, if you maintain that, because you're going to be tempted to go and grab any thought or any emotion that's going there, because that's our basic function. But you're more than just the ground function that you're feeling. What is being described is something that the animals do experience. Rises, something occurs to them, and they have a certain feeling or an emotion, and then they go off with it. Suddenly they're angry. You don't want to be next to them if they're angry, or curious, and that's part of having a body down here, reaction.
Stimulus and reaction.
But to take it into the realm of what the human mind is capable of, you must acknowledge that, yes, that is part of your makeup. The more primitive brain is in charge of all those functions. But you are more than that. And sometimes I think that added on part, where they call it the more modern brain, was put there so that you could get a higher perspective.
Well, I liked what you said earlier. Where in concentrating on the breath, you distance yourself. What you're distancing yourself from is from this immediate, very short little loops of stimulus and response, which engender engagement. And by engagement, it means that the mind starts to say, well, this needs to be solved, or it needs to be sorted, or it needs to be placed here, or we need to do that, or I've been worrying about that, and I've been wondering about this. So the engagement is the very first part of the mind's kind of spinning itself off and fragmenting your awareness. You're fragmenting yourself into many, many different awarenesses. I think people talk about multitasking, and the mind is very good at that. And they say women are better than men, and that's probably true, because I can't even tie my shoes and chew gum at the same time, which is hard to do, and don't try it. But the point being is that multitasking is something that you develop by having many different distractions and trying to handle them all at once, or handle them, keep them all in mind. We always say keeping everything in mind, but in fact, scientists and studies have been done to show that as you add tasks to a person's awareness, you don't do all of them as well as if you were doing one or two. Yes, you're doing them all, but you become distracted, you become unfocused, and you start to, your performance suffers greatly. People give these wonderful example. You're driving a car and they throw math problems at you as you drive the car, and then they throw distractions in front of you, like a simulated object will come in front of the car, and people hit it. You'd never do it if you were concentrating, but yet with a couple of different stimuli and other things going, you're gone. The tendency to do that is what this is trying to, first of all, get rid of, and also strengthen yourself, strengthen your ability to remain grounded, remain focused. Don't let the distractions become you, and take you over, in essence.
Mm-hmm. And wanting to be in that state is also key, because some people just, all they want to do is react. They'd rather not have to think about anything.
Yes. That's very true.
Mm-hmm. So you really would have to have made the decision that you want more than just running around in a reactive state.
I think that's key. We should really expound upon that, because I think you're right in the sense that reaction is easy, because the mind takes shortcuts. If a stimulus comes in, it falls into a pattern. We talked about this before, where reaction patterns burn little pathways, actual neurological pathways in the brain, and the more you take that stimulus and do that reaction, it becomes almost like everything, a reflex. So XYZ happens, and you're instantly angry, and you're off, and you're like, they always do this, and you're 15 things down in your reaction tree before you know what's going on, and that's that burned in reflexive pathway.
Right. And it's again, unless it's a life or death situation where you need that reflex in order to survive, you are wearing yourself thin. Because we've talked about this again before, about the fight or flight syndrome. Mm-hmm. And all the stressors that rise up within you internally, either hormonally or mentally, and your brain doesn't see a difference between a mental experience that way, seeing it on a screen, let's say, and you're still having these reactions, or actually experiencing it, going through it. So how much stress do you really want to put your body through, your mind through?
I mean, what you said is exactly right. What happens is these very important reflexive reactions for survival, the brain ties those things to things which aren't really involved with survival, but yet the reaction pattern becomes the same. So when something happens that triggers a fight or flight, you get the same cortisol response. Your arteries narrow, your eyesight focuses, your skin literally grows cold as the blood rushes to your core. Your muscles tingle and tremble. You're getting the same response that a squirrel gets when a hawk goes over its head, and it dashes up the tree in fear and fright and chitters like crazy. Well, for the squirrel, that is a life or death situation. But the trigger of whatever it was, the situation which has grabbed your life and death response, if you have a reactive mind, you're going through that over and over and over again. You can reach levels of cortisol and stress response, which then begin to damage the body. They cause secondary effects, damage to the digestive system, damage to the circulatory system, damage to the actual adrenal system. You have adrenal exhaustion. All of these things wear on the physical, but yet there's this feedback loop in the mind, which is in essence triggering them. And the mind itself gets, as you said, awash in these hormones, awash in this stress, and it too takes damage. It too is a self-destructive process.
You need to recover from those stressors. We're living in a world that just wants you to run the rat race continually without really taking a break. How dare you take a break?
Yeah.
You need to recover, and your body can only take so much. But going back to this, understanding that you really must give yourself permission to say, okay, enough of this. I don't want to be in the reaction.
Right.
It's too much. This is too much stress. In order to stop, you may be relying on different drugs. There we go. You hear me?
I can.
Okay.
What happened?
No, my
Oh, you hit the mute button?
the mute button went off. So giving yourself that permission and basically stating no more. I'm not going to be at the mercy of my own reactions. I'm doing this to me. Well, I can choose something else. Instead of destroying myself, I can build myself up. And you can do it. Taking those first steps of deciding, yes, for something better, and then, okay, breathe.
Yes. Interestingly enough, many meditations do this, but there's other things. There are, when you take yourself and do exercise, people say, I feel better afterwards. Well, one of the reasons you feel better is that during exercise, the mind is concentrated. It's on a repetitive motion. It's on a particular goal, which is quite simple and easy in a game or in some sort of sport, and where your mind is now free of these stress reactions, and also it has the side benefit of, in essence, focusing yourself on a usually repetitive motion. In most exercises, you're doing something over and over again, whatever it may be. And dance is another one. When you're doing something rhythmically to music, or just even listening to music, the mind is stilled. It's given an environment where it is really literally keeping time with a beat. We human beings are incredibly sensitive to a beat. Most songs have a heartbeat bass or some sort of a time tick rhythm, which we instantly gravitate to, and depending on the level of the rhythm, it evokes a very basic response, an emotional response. Those triggers are a different type of trigger. They don't put the mind into the reactive. They put the mind into a responsive. It allows the mind to free itself and concentrate on this emotion in the song, or these motions in the body, or in stillness and in grounding yourself through the breath. These grounding exercises, which we say here, the mind being the king of the senses, the king of all the reactive stuff, the breath or the repetitive motion lets you control that part of the mind. it puts what's in control of that. It's you, the consciousness, which is not the mind, and it is not the breath, and it is not the emotions, but it is the part of you which is always there. And that's what comes to the fore when we get grounded.
Yes, the breath. Well, you say repetitive motion. You also have to understand that with every repetitive motion, you're still breathing.
Yes.
It is as foundational as you can possibly get. The repetitive motion is that which allows your body and your mind to begin to work together, harmonize. But it's all riding on the breath when that happens. And it is that mechanism that allows you to align your physical body and your mind together. And when that happens, the emotions can also come into alignment.
And flow properly, too.
Yes. And in that experience of itself is the key to taking steps in allowing your mind the ability or participate in choosing the state you wish to be in. Because it's a key. Just like you have a key for your door lock. Mind is the key to be able to open up your life energy, your existence, into a much broader form, not just reactive, peaceful, aware. It steps into that part of you that is much more than just the mental part, the thinking part. Because everybody thinks that the thinking part is everything.
And we're almost taught that way. But I like where, I mean, I know we're, but the key that you just said, I think, is very important. It gives you the tool to give the space. So just as an example, once you have done this practice, you become habituated to it. Like everything else in your body and mind system, practicing the awareness, practicing the control, habituates you. So now a new stressor comes in, bam, out of nowhere. It allows you to tap into the calm and the stillness and realize that here's a stressor. Okay, it's a stressor. Take that breath, maybe it's just one breath that you get, and realize that you get to choose what you're going to react, how you're going to react. One of the people that we listened to some time back, one of the monks, was saying, this emotion, the stressor, the fear rises. And I say, hello, fear. And he welcomes the fear and say, yes, I know you're here. It's okay. I'm going to allow you to come in, and I'm going to allow you to go, and I'm going to remain in my peaceful, non-reactive state. That's the practice of that peace through habituating yourself to it allows you to kind of distance. You don't have that instant loop, stressor, reaction, cortisol, hormones going crazy, damage starts to arise, and you have no recourse. You're gone. You're in, as you said, you're blown in the wind now. You're off into the reaction. It allows you to kind of cut it off early before it becomes an overwhelming wave, and put in the peace, ground yourself, and then decide what will be next. But let's decide that we'll take a little break, and we'll come back on the other side and we'll talk more about breath.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief, Dev, is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side, as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers. Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is Book 1 of the Adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Everyone take a deep breath and just let it out. And tonight we are talking about breath. Actually, we're talking, interestingly enough, about the effect of concentrating on the breath and how it singularly, it literally quiets the mind. But I think let's talk a little bit about, there are the other effects. We noted in the beginning of the last half hour that the life force, the creative force, God is oftentimes referred to as being found in the wind, in the quietness of the wind. There's the creative force, the living force of the breath. And in the body, those who are alive are those who are breathing, who have that have that connection with the breath, and it is a symbol of life. The way one concentrates one's energy is oftentimes by using the breath. Even if you're a gymnast and you want to make a giant leap over something, they'll sit there and they'll literally get themselves psyched up. Use the breath. Concentrate the power of the mind through the breath and through intention, and then use that power to push their body to do amazing heights when dancing, when doing any kind of rhythmic exercise. The breath has to be in tune, as you mentioned last half hour. It tunes the body and the mind together through that exercise of the breath. And in controlling it, you bring the body and the mind as a system into a unity, into a harmony.
What I'd like to bring up is a question. Why does the breath do that to the mind?
That's a great question. I don't have to answer that question, right?
You want to give it a shot?
Well, no, I think I'd rather hear what your thought was.
Well, it goes right back to what you were just saying. The breath itself allows your consciousness to come into a state of being, which is now. In other words, instead of thinking, your consciousness shifts and it rides the breath. When you ride the breath, you become aware of the breath, the rhythm of the in and the out. And when you become aware of that in and out, you come to that state of awareness of being. I am. And it's very peaceful because it's not being assailed by anything at that point. It's riding the breath and enjoying that motion of in-breath and release, because it is part of what is.
Yes.
It is the very foundation of what is. So when you speak of the RUACH, which is the life force, the life breath, that is what it's referencing. Life itself is riding on the breath. So when you see that rhythm of life all around you, you begin to see it in terms of where is it in its cycle of in-breath and out-breath. Taking in and releasing. Everything around you is doing that. Are you even aware of it?
Right. I mean, that's go ahead.
Which is one of the main reasons why music speaks to us. Because when we develop hearing our mother's heartbeat.
Yes, the rhythm.
And it is foundational. Whenever you have the sound of a heartbeat rhythm, everyone pays attention because they stop thinking.
Right. Isn't that interesting that your attention is also a way of focusing the mind? With exclusion, it says this is important. And when you make something important, it becomes a focal point. It excludes other things. Also, you mentioned the breath. I mean, if you speed up, if you use cameras and speed up, the earth itself breathes. It will rise and fall through the seasons. When the rhythm of which we were all familiar with, the other rhythm which is instantly calming, is the rhythm of the ocean waves. This rhythm is very similar, a calm ocean wave breaking on a beach, to a in-breath and out-breath rhythm. That's that rushing sound which sounds like breath. It sounds like a gathering of breeze, and then the crash upon the shore, and the kind of the quieter, and then the drawing back into the wave again, and then it repeats. And it instantly, if you are sitting by the seaside, you're instantly calm. You are in a state of premeditation, if you will. You're premeditating. You're not trying to kill somebody, but you're in a state, a premeditative state, which is that you are open and you're aware and you're just listening to something which is rhythmically moving through you. You may align your breath to the rhythm of the waves, and many of these, you can find many videos where they're for relaxation, and they put on these wave sounds, at a certain rhythm. And when these gentle waves come in and go out, you synchronize your breath to them. You then synchronize your thoughts to them, and you enter a calm, aware state. They say for sleeping, but you can just do it just for peace.
And they name that noise white noise.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you know why?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know the technical reason why it's called white noise.
Go ahead.
It's a broadband, multi-frequency noise, which in essence has it's called a Gaussian distribution of energy.
Mm-hmm. Think of it in terms of all levels are being engaged at that point.
Mm.
And just in a balanced, gentle manner, because usually the sounds are soft and gentle,
mm-hmm.
that relax you. And then we know that if you play music that is, or just loud white noise, it's painful.
Can be, yes. Yes, because it's too much. It's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. But understanding at that point that you are a being who's constantly looking for that rhythm. You pay attention to anything and everything that presents itself with a rhythm. And you are constantly looking for patterns. Whether it's shortcut patterns or patterns that allow you to enjoy something that is beautiful or creative. But your consciousness gravitates automatically to those higher frequencies. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Because, you're not looking for the angry noise or the sorrowful noise or the darkness or depression. People don't look for depression. What you yearn for is lightness, freedom, joy. And we inevitably come to that point when we choose that we were no longer going to be in that lower reactive patterning.
And so we carry it with us in our breath. And the patterns that you're saying, the things that we're always looking for, we're always struck by them when they occur. You look out and you see the sun rising over water, and the sparkling of light has its own rhythm. It's very similar to the breath, but it's in light. It's coming to your eyes. It instantly arrests you and makes you pay attention. You just stand there transfixed, watching this pattern. Similarly, you're outside and wind rushes through the leaves and the trees, and it makes this breathing multifoliate. It's a broadband sound. It instantly stops you. all of your senses, if you put your hand down on something which is gently moving up and down like a cat, for argument's sake, it instantly calms you. That purring sound, this inrush of breath, in and out, these types of motions, whichever sense, and you notice that all the senses, the mind is the king of the senses, all the senses are keyed to look for these things and instantly transfer them to the mind, and it calms the mind almost without. If you want to soothe a child who is upset, you instantly start to rock them in a rhythmic way. It calms them almost immediately. You stroke their head or you stroke their back in almost the same frequency. These are the things which are keys, instant unconscious keys to calmness and centeredness and groundedness. And that the power of them is revealed in how instantly they affect us, and in using them consciously, not just unconsciously, to center yourself. So the breath is something we carry around with us all the time, from the moment we began living to the end. And we ignore it. But it's always there.
Well, you take it for granted.
You take it for granted.
The only time you begin to notice it is when you can't breathe.
Right, if you pay attention to it. If you this is where the all of these meditation exercises start with. Listen to your breath. Take a breath in and just feel the breath coming in. And then feel the holding of the breath, and then feel the releasing of the breath. And even in just saying it to yourself without anyone else around you, instantly go, ah. Hey, we even have, language always informs. We even have all these expressions. Take a breath. When you're searching for a word, or you're feeling yourself getting stressed, you just sigh it out for a second. Take a breath, and the word comes, or you feel some of the stress go away. Those are all, mind hacks. They're all keys to something which is precious. This idea of peace, of calm, of centeredness, of groundedness. And then once you've done many, 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 many exercises in this, you habituate yourself to it so that it becomes a tool that you can use consciously, a tool which you can use to not just calm yourself, but to calm everything around you. To take control of a chaotic situation and breathe calm into it. And you often speak of letting light flow outward, but it's not just, you're not turning a light on, you're letting it flow outward and dispel darkness and bringing it back and letting that calmness. You can take over a whole, as far as you want to take over, and impose upon that a nexus of calm. You do it while you're driving.
Right. I do. Because I actively consciously choose that as I drive, I have this huge sphere of peace around me, because I see madness everywhere.
There's a lot of madness.
So I have chosen to drive with a sphere of peace around me, and inevitably, you begin to have other cars line up with you, because they feel the calmness and the flow, and they feel safe. So suddenly you're surrounded by other cars that are vibing to the same frequency you are.
That's exactly. You're projecting a frequency. The habituation of this allows you to project a frequency, and you can do it in conversation. Conversation is a patterning upon the breath. And when you have a conversation, not just a monologue or a diatribe or a speech, it is an in and out flow of energy between you and the other, or you and others, but usually it's between two, where there is a rhythm to it. Well, people oftentimes mistake a serial monologue for a conversation. Right? A serial monologue is when you're waiting impatiently for the other person's lips to stop flapping so that you can talk. What are you not doing? You are not allowing anything in. Part of the in to your conversation is your ears. You have your ear gate and your mouth gate. People are mostly concerned with the mouth gate. I want to get what I want to say out to the people. That is not a conversation. It is just an outpouring, whatever it is. When you converse, you give a breath outward, a thought. We call those thoughts. They're wonderful things. You have a thought, and then you pause for that thought to be just recognized for the wonderful thought that it was, and then for someone to say, "What a great thought," or maybe they say very infrequently, "That's a dumb idea." But the point is what we're doing right now is a conversation.
Yes. The breath, the one thing I want to bring it back to, understanding that the breath becomes key for many, many things. And in the Tibetan Buddhist religion, philosophy, however you want to look at it, but they have something called a Dzogchen practice.
Oh, yes.
And that has to do with the ability to be compassionate. And I mean be compassionate, as opposed to, thinking nice thoughts about somebody. It is based on the breath, and the whole idea, literally, is to be able to take the negative energy that you happen to be in and transform it into positive. And it is all done by breath work.
Right.
They would have the monks actually sitting with people who were sick or dying and perform this to transform any negativity or negative karma, to try to break the hold of negative karma on the soul that's got to either heal or cross over. And it is something that as long as you have breath, you will be able to perform. But performing it also means that you are agreeing to change.
Interesting.
Yes, because you are not going to be who you were. Performing this means that you become compassion.
I want to put a fine point on compassion. Compassion is not just feeling sorry for someone. Compassion is taking in some of their sorrow. Compassion is a conversation of energy in which you offer your energy to the person who is needing of it, and you accept some of their want, lack, need, sorrow. It is not just, "Oh, it sucks to be you. Here's a cookie." It's, "I understand. I have been you. I will be you. I offer myself to you, and I accept some of your sorrow from you to lighten your burden." It is really a sharing of a burden. Compassion is truly, "I will share myself with you, and I will take upon some of your burden." And when you have expressed compassion to someone, they feel lighter. You have taken something that has been troubling them and taken it away. So you accept, and it changes you, because in accepting someone else's sorrow, you have to allow it. You have to make space for it.
Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy technique.
No.
To learn. In fact, a friend of mine was a Tibetan Buddhist, would follow that philosophy of taking in someone's pain or sorrow and giving them back light. Problem is, unless you have that technique down, what you take in can begin to fester in the body of the person who takes it in. That's why this technique was not a common knowledge thing, because it's not for the faint of heart.
No, it can.
It will kill you, and unfortunately, it did take my friend's life by doing that for decades.
It's taught to those who have already reached a certain level, but no matter what, it has its price. Like all healing arts have their price.
Right.
You know.
It's acknowledging, they acknowledge the fact that they are human beings here on this earth, and they are acting in compassion, but also understanding that this is the ultimate expression of this Dzogchen practice was done by Jesus Christ, because he is God and is capable of transforming it all because of that particular state of being. When humans do it, we die. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and but again, it's foundational in the breath, but it's a cycle, and unfortunately, the cycle of the soul of the Everyman, we have to start to cycle down here because we've reached the end of the show. But I'm going to take a deep breath. And I'm going to hold it for a week. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.
Still not talking.